Okay, so let's start this game. Okay, let's. So basically, Turkish troops advance more into the fourth room. The fourth room decides to invade this area of Turkey and starts moving more into Ankara to stop the Turkish advance, which the Turks are basically a bunch of warrior states now, which were a bunch of warrior states. Georgia is also pretty much struggling, especially in the plains, and same with the Northern Caucasian Union. But there is some hope in the Caucasus as for the Welt Pact as an Arabian as an Arabo-Iranic alliance decides to move into Azerbaijan to secure the oil fields there. Now the Kuban now the Circasian-Kubanian Union has had really good success in Georgia, especially the plains of Georgia. So eventually, Georgia's force was split into two, with the mountainous areas slowly resisting, but the government has already fallen with guerrilla warfare being there. So let's show on the more realistic color. Yep, that's a way more realistic color to what's happening there. Also, in the latest episode, you mean the Americans move in here. And of course capture the Philippines firstly, and then they immediately move into Japan. And since Japan is weak, they firstly land in Japan, and Japan is basically a bit strong. It's not that strong. But compared to the US, it's very weak now. And the US just straight up drops another bomb on Edo. The city's name has changed. So, and due to this, Japan surrenders, and along with that, Guangdong declares independence and joins the World Pact as an ally, while the Entente suffers from America. Same with the Philippines, but the Philippines are freed. Now the Soviets, using this as an advantage, decide to annex the Far Eastern Republic, and by annex I mean by that I mean conquer, but the Far Eastern Republic is basically nothing now, so the Russians can't do anything, and let's actually delete this now. I mean, they didn't join the Entente. Meanwhile, in the east, the Germano-Polish alliance, or the Welt Pact, is doing something very dumb and and is actually really struggling as the French move a massive offensive up the Rhine. Meanwhile, in Africa, hmm? Troops start to struggle, as you can see, and Addis Ababa is all close to falling. The Arabians launch a special invasion of Eritrea, and planning and cut off this navy, causing this navy to starve to death. And now the Red Sea is now ruled by the Welt Pact. Meanwhile, Egypt really struggles because of the Nile, as British troops move into Egypt. Meanwhile, Niger troops are way better at moving into Mali. Some desert The Algerian government has aligned itself with some Alma, with some Berber tribes to defeat the Niger, and this these tribal connections allow them to forcefully launch a massive offensive. Due to the fall of Morocco, the Mediterranean's entrance is secured, with the only way to deliver supplies from Africa to like Armenia is basically either to Britain and this route, which so Britain is basically keeping it alive. Well, meanwhile, Greenland and Canada fall. Now, since Greenland is also in this time a part of Denmark still, even though basically anything, Denmark doesn't really like this, but Greenland is returned to Denmark in return for a non-aggression pact due to them having good relations with the Entente. So the Americans are currently occupying Canada. Meanwhile, in the east, as you can see, basically troops move into Cairo, and with this, Egypt completely collapses, with Arabic troops keeping it alive over here, and so that the Red Sea blockade and the Eastern Mediterranean thing can continue. Along with that, they use their pretty large navy in the Eastern Mediterranean to invade Cyprus, causing a lot of causing the weakening of the Entente navy in the Mediterranean. But four storm troops are able to push back against Turkey. Meanwhile, the guerrillas which are still currently fighting, are currently struggling war. But there are some victories made by the guerrillas. Specifically, at some level, some Ossetian guerrillas are able to take this area along with aid from Georgian guerrillas. Georgian guerrillas are able to freely capture this area and make themselves a new government. Meanwhile, Azerbaijan, Baku gets taken over, and they use some level of railway connections that Georgia and Baku has for this offensive, causing the restoration of the Georgian government. And the Caucasus and the Northern Caucasus, but things are pretty bad still. And the small navy that's called the Caucasus controls allows for Black Sea to be less one-sided, unless the Soviets join in, because they're really big thing here. Italian troops further their mandate across Italian seas, specifically the Tyrrhenian Sea and those areas. And with severe hegemonic battles here, people start to struggle. Meanwhile, the Chinese are staying neutral, and since the fall of the Japosphere, or the East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere, it has really been dead for how long this lasted. I was made of and the Korean borders are remade in Chinese. And the Chinese and the Koreans form an alliance known as, and they joined the Southern Asian Defensive Pact, which becomes the Asian Defensive Pact. The Asian Defensive Pact also includes Tibet now, same with Mongolia and Xinjiang, and it becomes quickly a third player on the world stage, a weak stage, but still, and would become this world's version of the non-allied faction. Meanwhile, Poland, Polish, Hungarian, Romanian, and Habsburg troops move in to liberate this to win here. And the Greeks are currently and the Greco-Romans are the Greco-Bulgaro-Romans are currently being encircled, and the so-called Roman blockade here. With this, the Greeks also decide to strengthen their position in the Aegean because they don't want to repeat Cyprus. But the British naval invasion really does struggle against Spain, so it's pushed out with only the Pyrenees there serving as some sort of success. Meanwhile, German troops are able to retake a bit of the Rhine, and these victories and these losses make the war kind of seem a stalemate, because it really is. Even though Ethiopia is currently being really weak and not playing its cards right. Project Syphilis. By the way, I want to make another video about this and breaking the law counter, because I want to finish the series now, because maybe it might cause a nuclear war. So for now, basically everything's going fine. I mean, you're seeing like this happen, maybe this, some navals here. Tripolitania falls, for example. Meanwhile, Ethiopia is struggling still, but are able to retake their lands because of Ethiopia. Because of Ethiopia's strength. Meanwhile, a coup happens down here, causing, meant by coup, I mean the original government. The original government got restored, so they joined the Entente now. So Nigeria are currently invading German Cameroon, and German Cameroon is really dumb at fighting. This area gets encircled, and German Cameroon basically surrenders. And meanwhile, in German and East Africa, some successes are there with an independent boat team able to take over the Zanzibar colonies, forming Tanganyika, or basically the Zania, the Tan part of Tanzania. This is the Zan part. Tanzania. So yeah, basically a mess is here. No sides are currently in that level of desperation, but the sort of nukes, maybe the Eastern Romans, but I don't expect those guys. After that, the most majorist thing happens. The Soviets don't pick a side, they just join the war. The Soviets joined the war against both sides. Their troops immediately move into the unexpected poles, and since Poland is falling, the first non-tactical nukes are dropped on Moscow, hit Leningrad, Kiev, Astana, Vladivostok, and Omsk. So yeah, with less than 7 there, thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Good luck with you, and